Hello student. Now today we are going to start with the third lesson of civics of standard 8 entitled as the Union Executive. In the last chapters we learned about the Union Legislature, which included the structure and functioning of the parliament. Now in this chapter we are going to study the Union Executive. What is the meaning of Union Executive? So let us understand with the first point, structure of the Union government. Here the Union government means the central government. We have been listening in the news that the central government decision taken by the union ministry, union finance ministers. So union here it means the government which is at the central level in India, located in Delhi, where all the head offices is at Delhi and the major decisions are taken there with the permission of the councils of ministers. So that is the central government, Modi government that we can say right now. The union government is made up of following constituents. Now, what are those constituents or what are those things? Let us have a look. Here we have the figure of union government. Okay, in union government, we have a president. President is the chief of the union government. Again, it is divided into the legislature. Again, in legislature, we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. We already learned in the previous lesson about the functioning of Lok Sabha, its period, okay, its members, the difference between the Lok Sabha, upper house, lower house. Okay, so that difference, it has Lok Sabha and it is Rajya Sabha. The two are, Rajya Sabha represents the states of India and Lok Sabha represents the common people of India, where we had a constituents election, where we choose our MP, member of parliament, and send to the Delhi just for putting our questions and to solve our problems. And another one is the executive. In executive we have the prime ministers and his council of ministers. Council of ministers here means the ministers to whom the departments are allotted, as those are the heads of the particular department, and the main council of ministers. So union government is classified into the three categories. The president is the main one, and the legislature it has Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha MPs, and in executive we come across the prime ministers and the council of ministers. Okay, now you know that the legislature, executive, and judiciary are the three organs of the states. So these three organs of the state that we have already studied: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Okay, in the previous lesson we already learned the difference between it. Here again I want to just clarify. The function of the legislature is to make laws, the executive implements the laws, and the judiciary provides justice. So this is the function of the legislature, and these three are the organs of the state, and they work for the welfare of the people. Organs of the state. If you are asked the question in objective type, what are the organs of the states, you can answer this: legislature, executive, and the judiciary are the three organs of the state. So they work for the welfare of the people, betterment of the people. In a parliamentary system, the executive is a part of legislature and is responsible to the legislature. Now here this executive, they are the part of, in a parliamentary system the executive is the part of legislature, that is this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, because they are the member of this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Unless they are the member of Lok Sabha, they cannot become the executive. This is the common difference that you better keep in mind. Okay, they had to be MP first, that is member of parliament from Lok Sabha. They had to be selected from Lok Sabha, either from Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. They can become the executive or the council of ministers. Therefore they are interdependent. Now when we learn about the executive, it is important for us to understand who are included in executive. Now what comes under executive? Just try to know. Now what are the constitutional provisions relating to the executive, and what is the process of policy making for public welfare? Okay, so who are those executive, how do they become, and what are the policy for those, what are the constitutional provision for that? Okay, what is written in the constitution, what about their qualification, okay, their bonding, what are the required things, that we are going to learn. The Union Executive. The Union Executive comprises the President, Prime Minister, and the Council of Ministers. Now, here the most important point you better keep in mind, in India, India's Union Executive comprises. It includes what? Number one, the President, then the Prime Ministers, and the Council of Ministers. These three people comes under the Union Executive, because these three people implements the laws. The President, Prime Minister, and his Council of Ministers, that is the minister to whom the departments are allotted, that is the Council of Ministers. Now let us understand this. Now, number one, the President. According to the provision in the Constitution of India, the President is the supreme head of the state. Now, President is the supreme, he is the main of the state. Here the meaning of state is country. Keep in mind, not the particular state, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra. Okay, here the state comprises country. So he is the supreme head of the state. The office of the President has the highest honor and prestige, and it represents the Republic of India. All executive powers of the state are vested in the President by the Constitution. Okay, he is the main person in the Indian Constitution, and he has the main power. So he is called as the first citizen of India. The President is the first citizen of India. The government carries out its function in the name of President. Okay, now this also you keep in mind. The government, it carries out the functions in the names of President. That this is the decision. So, however, in reality, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers run the government. Exactly. So here the very keen difference. Keep in mind, it is not possible for the President, only being a one single person, single post, can look after each and everything and every matter in India. So whatever business is carried out in by the central government, it is under the name of President they carry out. So therefore the government carries out its function in the name of President. However, the Council of Ministers, all the Council of Ministers, central government, run the government under his name. Therefore, the President is the nominal. Nominal here is, it means only for the namesake. The President here is the nominal and the constitutional head, whereas Prime Minister is the executive head. Now here, please understand what is told here. Therefore, the President is a nominal. Nominal, it means for the namesake. It is given. Under his name, we are carrying out the business. But who is doing all the main business? Who is currently running the government? Exactly, that is the Prime Minister and his executive. Okay, that is Prime Ministers. He is the nominal constitutional head, whereas the Prime Minister is the executive head. He is majorly taking the decisions. Okay, he is majorly visiting everything, and major decisions are taken by him with the consult of President. But major decision is taken by again the President, but with the consult of Prime Minister. So now, what is the election process of the President? Now let us understand how the President is selected. The President is indirectly elected by the people. Okay, now if you remember well, how do these Lok Sabha, member of parliament of this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are elected? Okay, for Lok Sabha we have election after 5 years. We directly voting them and electing them. But here in the presidentship, common people don't give any vote for the President. How? The President is indirectly elected by the people of India. That means the common people do not vote in the election of the President. He is elected by directly elected representatives. So he is elected by the directly elected representative. Now, who are those directly elected representatives to whom we elect as the member of parliament? So those member of parliament from the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, as well as the state legislature, that is Amdar, to whom we call as Amdar. Okay, here in the state also we have election after 5 years, and we are selecting member of legislative assembly, that is to whom we call as a MLA, and that is Amdar. Okay, to with the help of those people, that is Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha MP, and the state legislature, that is MLA. With the help of those, the group of these parliamentarians and the members of the state legislature is known as electoral college. So they are electing president, not the common people of India. Okay, understood? The tenure of the president is 5 years again. So tenure of the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha MP also 5 years. So here are the president also for 5 years. The person contesting the presidential election should be an Indian citizen. So that is the one condition. Must be the Indian citizen, first condition. Whose age should be at least 35 years. Okay, he must complete his 35 years. Complete. Okay, should be at least 35 years. The person who is above 35 can stand for this election. The person elected to the position of president has to take an oath while accepting the post. While accepting the post, they take an oath. Now, according to the oath, the president bears the responsibility of protecting the constitution and ensuring that the government runs as per the constitution. As per the constitution, the president governs in accordance with the advice given by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So how he works? Works on advice given by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Mr. Ramnath Kovind is the current president of India. Ramnath Kovind is the 14th president of India. 14th. And here is one sample before you, oath of affirmation. See, I do swear in the name of God that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the Republic of India, and I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law, and that I will devote myself to the service and well-being of the people of the Republic of India. So this is the example of oath. The responsibility of the protecting the constitution is shouldered by the president. Okay, this responsibility is taken by the president. But if any act of president violates the constitution, then the parliament has the authority to remove the president. Now here, most important thing, if the president does anything which is against of the constitution, and against the, if he violates any other act written in the constitution, then he can be removed from the post of presidentialship, and this process is known as the process of impeachment. Keep in mind, the name of the process is the impeachment, where the president can be removed from the post for this misconduct or misbehavior. Any one house can lay the charge of violation of the constitution, and the investigation of the charge is carried out by the other house. Here it means any house, that is Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Either any house can do this work, can lay the charge of violation of the constitution, and investigation of the charge is carried out by the other house. Okay, if the Lok Sabha charge of the violation, then Rajya Sabha investigate the matter. In this way, it carried out by the other house. The resolution has to be passed by the special 2/3 majority of both the houses of the parliament. Now here, if suppose he has done something wrong and the charge is made against him, so that to remove him from the post of president, so that resolution has to be passed with the special 2/3 majority of the both houses. 2/3 majority is required. That means Lok Sabha also. So if suppose there are 550 members in the Lok Sabha, so 66%, two-third, it means 66% MPs, they have to support for this. That is a two-third. And if they don't support, then it won't be passed. So that is the meaning of it. The special resolution has to be passed by the special two-third majority of both the houses of the parliament. Then only it can happen. Otherwise, it cannot be happen. Now let us learn powers and function of the president. What are the power and what is the function of the President of India? Now let us understand what are the powers and functions of the President. The Constitution has entrusted several powers and functions to the President. A few functions are enumerated as follows. Number 1. The President summons the meeting of Parliament. Okay, all the meeting of the Parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, this meeting is called by the President. Then prorogue the session of Parliament. He sends message to the both houses, that is Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. He can send the message. Even he dissolves the Parliament after the tenure is over. And what is the tenure of the Parliament, especially Lok Sabha? Its period is 5 years. So after 5 years, he dissolves. That means he suspends the assembly. Dissolves here means he suspends the assembly of the Lok Sabha, as it has the period of 5 years and that is over. So he can dissolve it. Or even before the tenure gets over, so he has the right, if suppose such condition arises, then he before completion of 5 years, before the completion of 5 years, he can suspend the Lok Sabha. But Rajya Sabha never get dissolved because that is the permanent house. It has a 6 years period. But Lok Sabha has 5 years period. Lok Sabha can be dissolved, but Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. We learnt in the previous lesson. Don't forget. Second number. The bill passed by the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha must be signed by the President. Without his signature, the bill cannot become a law. If any decision is taken, if any law is to be made either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, okay, after passing that particular bill by the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, that has to be sent to the President of India. Final. When final, at last the President sign on the bill, then it becomes law. Otherwise, it won't become a law. So that power President has. Number 3. The President appoints the Prime Minister and the other ministers on the recommendation of Prime Minister. That means here the President give an appointment to the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers, the other ministers, on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. When Prime Minister says to appoint this person, to appoint that person, when he gives an advice, on his advice, President appoints the other ministers. The President appoints the judge of the Supreme Court and the High Court of the states. Every state has a High Court, but Supreme Court is only one, and that is in Delhi. And every state has the High Court. If the matter is not solved in High Court, then we go to the Supreme Court. So that Supreme Court judge as well as High Court judge is appointed by the President of India. Even President also appoints the governors of the states. Now every state has a particular governor. Okay, he is the supreme. For example, in Maharashtra we have Bhagat Singh Koshari as a governor. So he is appointed by the President. So that main person who controls the state. So he is appointed by the President. Even Chief Election Commissioner and the other important officers, many other important officers, that is appointed by the President of India. Even the President is the Commander-in-Chief. So number 5 point, he is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. So decisions regarding war and peace are made by the President. Army, Navy and Air Force. So being a chief of all and being the President of all, so being the President of armed forces, he has a supreme power to declare a war or a peace for any nation. Okay, without his permission, these forces cannot move. the president has some judicial powers too. For instance, the president has the power to reduce the punishment, grant a respite of commute, a sentence of a person, or in a special circumstance grant pardon or reprise on humanitarian ground. Here it means if the punishment is given by the High Court or the Supreme Court, and if the particular person approached to the President of India for reducing the punishment, President can reduce the punishment. Even he can cancel the punishment given by the court, but it happens in a very, very rare case. Okay, even he can grant respite or commute a sentence of a person, or in a special circumstance he can grant pardon. Even he can cancel or to that punishment. Even he can reduce the period. Okay, he can reduce the severity of the punishment. So that authority is given to the President of India. Why? On the humanitarian ground, just for the sake of humanity. If the president thinks only this can happen, otherwise it cannot be happen. 7. President has the power to declare emergency in case of crisis situation arising in the country. If suppose there is some emergency, there is some major problem arise in the country, there are three kinds of emergencies mentioned in the constitution. Now what are those? Constitution emergency here it means the emergency if the state is there in any type of problem. Number one, here is a national emergency. It has the article 352. Then state emergency and financial emergency 360, 352, 356 and 360. So it is given number in the constitution. Financial emergency, national emergency, if the state is unable to run or the government is unable to run according to the provisions given in the constitution, then it is called national emergency. Again we have a state emergency. If the state is unable to run given guidelines in the constitution, then that is a state emergency that can be applied in particular state. And financial emergency, if the country is unable to run according to the financial condition, is getting worse and worse, then it is called as a financial emergency. So in emergency our fundamental rights are dissolved. Okay, we cannot go to the court for our fundamental rights. Now in the absence of the president, his functions are carried out by the vice president. So we have a president and the vice president. When the president is absent, okay, so that work is carried out by the vice president. The vice president is elected by members of both the houses. And currently who is the vice president of India? Mr. Venkaiah Naidu. Venkaiah Naidu is the vice president of India, and he is elected by the members of the both houses. So in short, just keep in mind the powers of the President of India. He has the legislative powers, judicial powers, pardoning power, emergency. He can declare emergency, declare the military power. Even he has diplomatic powers, executive powers, and so on. Now you can just view through these images. You can better understand it. Here are some more information for you through the images. And here is a pic of Vice President of India, 13th Vice President of India, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu. So here is the Prime Minister, and here we have his Council of Ministers. Okay, Amit Shah, Home Minister, Rajnath Singh as a Defense Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman as a Finance Minister, S. Jaishankar as a Foreign Minister, Nitin Gadkari as a Road Transport and Highway Minister, then Prakash Javadekar, Environment and Forest Climate Change Minister, Piyush Goyal, Railway Minister, Ravi Shankar Prasad, Laws and Justice, Smriti Irani, Women and Child Development Minister, and others. So just let us have a look on Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The President is the constitutional head. However, in reality, his powers are nominal and the Prime Minister, along with his Council of Ministers, is responsible for the administration. Okay, who are the main responsible for the administration? Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. We will now see the role and functions of the Prime Minister. The party which attains a majority in elections nominates their leader as the Prime Minister. Here the majority here remains the party who receives more and more number of MPs in the Lok Sabha election. So that party is able to form the government. So that is the majority, and those people who are elected, they select one person among them as the Prime Minister. The Council of Ministers is then formed of trustworthy colleagues from within the party. So this is the picture of Council of Ministers, and they are the very trustworthy colleagues, and they are selected within the party. Among themselves they decide. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers must be the member of Parliament. First thing, must be the member of Parliament. That means they must be the members of any house, that is Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Either house, they any of the two house, they has to be the member first. In case they are not members, they are required to get elected to the Parliament within 6 months of their appointment. Suppose sometime it happens, the other person who is not elected from the election is selected as the minister. If such type of person is selected as a as a minister, then that particular person has to be get elected from the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Mostly such latecomers, they get elected from the Rajya Sabha within the period of 6 months from their appointment. Within the period of 6 months from their appointment time. The government in reality is run by the Prime Ministers and the Council of Ministers. Exactly. In reality, these people run the government, Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. This means that the real executive power are vested in the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Now here we have the list of the Prime Ministers of India till date. Now let us look at their functions of the Prime Minister. Number 1, the foremost task of Prime Minister is to form his Council of Ministers. First thing, very first they choose their Council of Ministers. Okay, and President appoints them with the recommendation of Prime Minister. While doing this, the Prime Minister gives priority to the trustworthy colleagues while considering their administrative experience, governance skills, efficiency, and technical expertise. So these are the conditions. Under these conditions, the President selects the ministers for the particular department. He must have administrative skill, he must have good experience, good governance skill, efficiency, and he must be socialite with the people. He must know how to handle the problems. He must have some technical knowledge. So these are the some guidelines. Number 2, after deciding upon the members of the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister allocates portfolios to them. Portfolios, that is a department. After selecting the person, now department is given to them by the Prime Minister. Number 3, the Prime Minister leads the Council of Ministers. That means he does the leadership of these people. The Prime Minister chairs all the meeting of the Council of Ministers. That he become the main chairperson of the meetings. Being a Prime Minister, that is his duty to chair the meeting and to guide them and to lead them. After allocation of portfolios, the Prime Minister has to maintain the coordination in the working of previous department, facilitate cooperation amongst the department, supervise the working of this department in order to maintain the efficacy and efficiency. So, Prime Minister looks after the other departments, how these people are handling. So he looks after the coordination between them. He supervises them about their how do they work. He maintains the efficacy and efficiency of them. And the next point, the prime minister also has various other responsibilities such as the raise the image of the country in the international arena and work towards the achieving a favorable opinion globally, to develop trust among people and to provide strong support to people who are victims of any disaster. So he has to raise the image of the country at the international level as our currently PM is doing. Even he has to achieve the favorable opinion for our country globally, create a favorable atmosphere for our country, for our nation, develop and trust among the people, and to provide strong support to the people who are victim of any disaster. If suppose any nearby country became the victim of any natural disaster, suppose any the country Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, we can take Myanmar, Nepal, Bhutan. So India is the first to reach them for any type of help because that is our duty. So we provide strong support to the people who are victim of any disaster, even in our country as well, and our country and to the nearby country, because we have to maintain the foreign relations very well. So that is a part of foreign policy. So here in short, it is made available to you again the functions of the prime minister. He elected head of the country, then leaders of the majority party. He is the represent he link president of people, people and parliament. He is the link between the president of India and the people and the parliament. He advises and informs presidents, gives an advice and informs to the president. He selects the council of ministers. He distributes portfolio. He expands or demand resignations. He monitors the working of the ministers. So these are the functions of the prime minister. That means in short, he chairs the cabinet meetings. He coordinates the work of different departments. His decisions are final in case of disagreement arise between departments. He exercises general supervision of different ministries, and all ministers work under his leadership. Now let us look at the functions of the Council of Ministers. Number 1. In a parliamentary form of government, the Council of Ministers takes the initiative in the process of lawmaking. First, they take initiative in process of lawmaking. The scheme, policy, plans, etc. are drafted and discussed and then introduced in the House. If they want to introduce anything, any scheme, plans, policy, they draft it, they discuss it, and they introduce in the House. The Council of Ministers discuss the important questions before making a decision. Number 2. Education, agriculture, industry, health, foreign relations, among others, are the subjects upon which the Council of Ministers has to decide specific policies or direction of work. So these are different departments, and they have to. And the ministers of these different departments like education, agriculture, industry, foreign policies, health. So they have to decide one policy upon which they decide how to work. The parliament needs to be taken into the confidence about the policy decision taken by the government. So what decision is taken, they have to ask for the parliament. They have to give answer to the parliament. Therefore, the ministers of the respective departments lay their policy plans in the House to bring about a discussion on it. So they keep their plans in the House, and so that majority party, running party, and the opposition party discuss on the points. Discuss merits, demerits, benefits, advantage, disadvantage, debate and deliberation that takes on, and then finally it is decided and drafted and it becomes law. Implementation of policy is the foremost responsibility of the Council of Ministers. Once the Parliament approves the laws, the Council of Ministers implements them. Once it is approved, once it becomes law, and finally it is signed by the President, then it becomes laws, and the Council of Ministers, they implement them. So it is their work. Now let us understand how does the Parliament keep a check over the executive. In a parliamentary system of government, the legislature tries to keep control over the executive, that is, the Council of Ministers. Now, how the Council of Ministers are judged or kept on judge, or how they are judged. The control is exercised in the law making or policy making process. And even after that, a few ways of exercising control. That means these people are kept under the control. These council of ministers people are kept under the control by the law making or policy making process. How do they make laws? How do they make the policy? So while making a policy, how do they put point? What are the advantages, disadvantages? Even opposition party keeps better control. Even how do they implement the policies? Even on the implementation also, why this is not implemented, how it is implemented. So this question also asked, and why it is not done. So implementation policies, and even after that, what are the other ways? Just look. Just have a look on the other ways of the control. Number 1, discussions and debates. Debate and discussions among the member of the house are an integral part of the law-making process. So these debates and discussions help the members to scrutinize the policy proposal and laws and point out the shortcomings. The discussions are essential for creation of healthy laws. So just to make creation of healthy laws, the discussion from various point of views of any matter is taking place. Just to study it thoroughly, or just to study in a detailed manner. Its advantage, disadvantage, merits and demerits. Ruling party and the majority party and the opposition party comes together to discuss the matter, and out of discussion the fruitful matter comes, the fruitful outcome is come. Now second point, question hour. Now during parliamentary session, the proceedings of the houses begins with the questions asked by the members of the house. So when the members of the house ask the question, so that is the time is known as the question hour. The concerned ministers are supposed to give satisfactory answer to these questions. Now who are asking these questions? The members of the opposition party asking the questions to the ruling party ministers about their particular departments, their work, their performance, their planning, and they have to give very satisfactory answers. Question hour is one of the most effective ways of keeping a check over the council of ministers. During question hour, members criticize the government and ask questions on various issues. Sometimes when a member is not satisfied with the answer of the minister, then argument take place. They keep on argumenting if they are not satisfied. Occasionally, members walk out of the house or enter into the well of the house and give slogan to record their protest. Sometimes they come together, sometimes they go ahead with the chair near to the chair of the person who controls it, speaker, and that is called as a well area, into the well and the house, and give slogans to record their protest. Now as they are in a well and they are just giving a protest, going nearby to the speaker. Now next is a 0 hour. Now, during the parliamentary session, the period around 12 noon is called 0 hour. When there is a 12 noon in the clock, so it is known as a 0 hour. Now during this period, any questions of public importance can be raised and discussed. So this is called as a 0 hour. But do you know fact? The 0 hour is not defined anywhere, neither in constitution nor in the rules of parliament, but it still exists. 0 hour. Actually, it is the informal device available to the members of the parliament to raise matters without any prior notice. The 0 hour starts immediately after the question hour, and after the question hour, 0 hour starts and it lasts until the agenda for the day. So till the agenda of the day comes, the 0 hour is continue, and when it comes after the question hour, 0 hour comes, and after the 0 hour, the agenda of the day is kept forward. That is the regular business of the house is taken up. In other words, the time gap between the question hour and the agenda is known as 0 hour. It is an Indian innovation in the field of parliamentary procedure and has been in existence since 1962. Now next we have a no confidence motion, number 4th. Now this is the one of the most effective ways to keep a check on the Council of Ministers. The government stays in power till it enjoys the support of majority in Lok Sabha. It remains in power till it get the support of majority in Lok Sabha. Here it means sometimes the government stands on the supports of the 2 or 3 parties. The 2 or 3 parties come together, it is called as a coalition government. And if suppose the other party removes the support of the particular party, then the party falls down and again election retake place. If the members of parliament withdraw the support, it may lead to loss of majority. That means majority is lost. So they are about to lose the power. Just take an example. I need the 100 MP support with me and I have right now 50 with me. So I take the support of 30 from another party A and again 20 from another party B. So in this way I reach to the limits of 100, and if suppose anyone from the A or B takes out the support, so that particular number from me, then my power is decreased. So in this way, and I may not be able to run the government. The members of the house can move no confidence motion by simply expressing we do not have confidence in the government. So just they express this way and the no confidence motion set forward. If the motion is passed with the majority support, then the Council of Ministers has to resign. And if this is passed, no confidence motion is passed. Here it means if it is passed, that means the current government is failed to prove their majority, that they have 100, as a given example, that they have 100 MPs with them. They have to prove the 100 MPs support with them. If even a single vote is missing, then they have to resign. That means no confidence motion is passed. So they must not have to pass the no confidence motion. Got it? So there is an extensive bureaucracy that works under the executive. Now we will study this bureaucracy in the 6th chapter. So here again, just go through his extra information. What is a no confidence motion? It is a floor test to prove majority in the Lok Sabha, can be moved by any MP. Speaker decides the date of the debate, and date of the debate must be within 10 days of moving motion. The ruling government has to resign if it loses the trust vote. So in this way the lesson is over. Thank you.